Here I am, made in Belfast, second generation Chinese, born in Belfast. My parents came to Northern Ireland in the early 1960s because of my father's Waak. A Waak is a plan, a purpose, plan with a purpose. At the times of the 1970s, if you were born in Northern Ireland, you'll be familiar with the sinking of Titanic, the Harland and Wolff glorious cranes, the shirt-making industry, and the export of linen. If you were born in the 1970s in Hong Kong, you would be familiar with cameras, Yin pills, traditional Chinese medicine, that for your tickly throat like Pei Pa Go, and so on. And also the Made in Hong Kong label. All the plastic toys were made in Hong Kong. Manufacturing at its height at this time is amazing, incredible, isn't it? So man can make products, but can he make himself? It's 2014 and it's January and I'm sitting in the office. We've just come back after Christmas and I'm heading Chinese Welfare Association. 7 years ago, before that time, I'd said at the interview, once the Chinese Community Centre was built, I would leave. I had this vision that there will be children from different backgrounds at the youth group. The elderly that we respected in the Chinese community would have their lunch group. Babies and toddlers at the creche would come from diverse partnerships and to celebrate the Chinese culture with everybody else and to take part in other people's festivals and cultures in Northern Ireland. So here I'm getting ready for Chinese New Year. Outside is bleak and grey, but inside the building the staff are running around and I'm here adminning, doing my emails, checking the inbox. And at that moment, the phone rings. I pick up the phone and the message is, my father is in a coma. The next few hours is a blur. The computer that I am is no longer looking at emails for Chinese New Year, but it's looking at Googling flights to get back to Hong Kong. And then I'm in Hong Kong, in the villa that my father had built in the early 1980s for us. He built it in the countryside that he grew up in. We arrive in Hong Kong and it's now Chinese New Year, a couple of days before Chinese New Year. My mother is frantic, absolutely frantic. And in good old Chinese tradition, she believes that spring cleaning will bring in the good luck and all the bad luck will go away. My brother is to put up some banners for good luck at the doors. And I sort of slightly laugh, actually, even amongst this sort of miserable period, because I am the clever one in the family, I always say, being the younger one. I try to stay out of my mother's road. And I decide that I will go outside and clean the stainless steel gates of our house. My mother, as I said, her anxiousness for my father to get well, she's intensified. She wants cleaning to be absolutely spotless. And she tells me, here's the WD-40. And I look at her and go, what? Are you serious? Actually, I didn't say it, but that was in my head. Very Northern Irish. So, as I walk out, I notice the orchids start to bloom. And I go outside and I do, my goodness, do I make those stainless steel gates shine. And as I walk back in, the phone rings. We all stop in our tracks. This time, it's good news. My father has awakened and we rush to the city. A few days later in respite, my father starts to talk. And the first things he said to me, Eileen, how is Lauren? How is Lauren today? And I said, Father, we're in Hong Kong. We're not in Northern Ireland. We're not living in Carrickfergus, the town that he brought me up in. But he talks incessantly about it. And then I realized that had been my father's purpose, to bring us there. Those memories stick in him like a memory bank. We discovered that my father has dementia, but these are the memories that made his life. As you see, the manufacturing times of the early 1970s, or the 1960s actually, meant that people couldn't make a living in Hong Kong that came from agricultural background. My father was from a poor village. Because of the 5 years invasion of Japan to Hong Kong, It had made its toll on the villagers. He lost his parents at a very young age and was left with one older sister and one younger brother. My mother, the story goes, his great-grandmother took them through the mountains of China. They were poor too, but they ended up in the city. Never the twain would have met, but those two, my mum and dad, met through selling stuff, selling fish, trading anything. And due to that and the manufacturing time, living and making a life for his wife, and at the time my brother was born in Hong Kong, wasn't really possible. He went to the temple one day, and I imagine it was hot and humid because that's all I always remember of Hong Kong. You step off the plane, really hot and humid. He's holding these joss sticks in his hand in a bamboo tube. He turns them over and over, shakes, rotates, until one drops, and one did drop. He goes to the fortune teller, and they tell him to go west. They didn't tell him to go west to the rain of Northern Ireland, but somehow we ended up in London where they told him Northern Ireland was a brain country. This is before the Troubles. And he comes here, and I am made. I was born here. 9 years later, my mum and brother rejoined him. I was that child that no one had seen in Belfast, one of the very first children of the 3% of the world's population that doesn't live from the country of their origin. I was born and lived in the Shankill Road in Woodfield, North Belfast. I was the child that found this little hole in the door very amusing. Now I know it's a gunshot hole. I was the child that got caught in its little pram and tied herself to it while the army went past. And I was the child with actually black wavy hair, which is strange for Chinese, but I had black wavy hair and olive skin, while everybody was fair and pale and wanted to play with me. Dad knew that growing up in the city wasn't going to be where we could have a great life. He wanted to take us somewhere that had good feng shui. And I remember to this day as we drove to Carrickfergus. On the left were the mountains of Cave Hill, and on the right was the sea. This is very similar to our home in Hong Kong. Mountains to the left, sea to the right. And there he found his spot. He found his restaurant opposite the Carrickfergus Castle. Here, this is what became his memory. To me, I understood this is his purpose, his plan, his Waak. And I grew up in Carrickfergus. I learned things like sticks and stones would break my bones, but names will never hurt me. The two boys that called me names got punished. It was the days of corporal punishment. One, yes, I felt good that they got dealt with. Two, I didn't. I felt very sad that they received such a strict punishment. So I learned at a very early age about racism. But I also learned compassion. I also learned, could something be done to help people? The other time, I was meant to be the angel at the nativity play. And just 2 weeks before it, having been really excited, I had this lovely image of a white fairy ring on my head, a halo, and the white costume. The teacher told me, I have a position for you, a role for you, and you'll no longer be the angel. You'll be one of the 3 wise men. I remember standing to her, looking her straight in the face and said, no, I'm not doing it. Please put me in the choir. And I did. I felt a sense of triumph. I stood my ground. I didn't totally win, but I stood my ground. And there I learned patience, not to be angry, to be defiant, but to have my own rights. Growing up, it wasn't easy at big school. I lost all confidence. I used to be the netball captain, and I was the hockey champion at school. But in big school, for whatever reason, I just didn't feel like I fitted in. I started to become like that awkward teenager, that wallflower. I stared at girls that were pale and beautiful with high noses. I know that sounds horrendous, but I had this fixation that my nose was too small. And I thought I wasn't going to be liked. That's a time when young people are looking for love. And I thought, I'm not going to fit in. Identity was a huge thing. Never mind little nuances of being Protestant or Catholic. I actually didn't know what all that meant. Because you see, growing up in the town I went, we didn't really talk about it till we went to school. And they pointed out who was the Catholic. So for me, I understood difference. I understood that I was part of Northern Ireland. And for me, for a while, I really had a great career as life went on. I was very lucky. Somebody saw the talent in me and asked me to tutor some children in the Chinese community. With that, I became an English language teacher. I did well. I had a nice career, and then I got married. I married somebody from what I thought was my own culture, a Taiwanese man, lovely, gorgeous looking man. But however, marriage wasn't what it was meant to be. The dreams of that fairy tale wasn't quite there. And one day, I came out of the chemist holding 2 packets of pills. And my first boyfriend, who was from the local community, stopped me and said, "How are you, Eileen?" I just looked at him. He says, "Are you okay?" I didn't really answer. He knew me for 9 years as a child. He asked me to sit in his car, and he talked and talked. I really can't remember much of the conversation because I was thinking of not being there in life. He talked about being a social worker. He talked about meeting government. He talked about government not being able to do things with people, that we couldn't be a benefit if we didn't have the partnerships with government. And suddenly, I found my voice. I said to him, you can do this. We can connect, we can meet people. We just need to show our differences and work at it. Because up to that point, I actually had a really good career on learning how to connect with people. And that was one of my father's strengths that he gave me. Suddenly I realized my purpose was still to live on, to help all the other people that were different and learn to connect and make those connections and bring about peace in all ways, beyond the troubles of Northern Ireland. And when I returned back to my home, there was a bouncy castle in the garden. My kids were playing on it. And then I realized I was meant to be there for my 2 boys too. So that is my purpose, my Waak. So what can I say? Can a person really have a purpose in life? Yes, they can. They can with a plan. But at times, sometimes you have to make that. And I'll give you a little acronym. It's something I used to do as a child. I used to love making acronyms and letters and words together. So when we look at the word made, think of make actions, develop experiences. Experiences are incredible. They serve your memory. They will be things, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But you can do a lot with that. My father always said, and it took me to do this talk to realize the depth of the meaning. Nhân hơi biến đổi tập, giao gai hoạt cho tập. What he was saying, a person, a man, a human being can go anywhere in the world, be anywhere. But with a plan, I always just thought it was plan, but with a plan and a purpose, we can do it. We can give opportunity to people. You can make the opportunities. Gai means to plan, to prepare, to organize in advance. Waak means to draw, to carve, and in it has a hidden meaning. In the carve word, there's a knife. Use that knife, carve your life, help others if you can. I hope you find your Waak.